Hello, everyone.
Hello.
This is Dr. Qureshi here, live from Towson, Maryland, with my amazing co host, Deanna Pelly. How is it going, Deanna?
I'm good. I'm good. Things are looking exciting in Minnesota. Like summer has arrived here, so it's nice and warm. It's been a great weekend, and I went for the fishing for the first time in my whole life this past weekend, if you can believe it. I went fishing. I
Wow,
know.
that
I know.
sounds awesome.
It was
You
fun.
did
Mhm.
something new.
I did.
Any special occasion slash any special person that you went with? Who motivated you?
It was my boyfriend actually. We went up north to northern Minnesota to the cabin his dad has to visit his dad and stepmom, and we decided it was fishing opener in Minnesota. This is a big deal,
Yeah.
and I've never been fishing in my life, and I caught a sunfish and we tossed him back. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I don't think I went fishing, honestly. I can't
Okay.
remember. So
hmm
so I guess if I did remember,
hmm
then I probably will. If I actually went fishing, I'm guessing I would have remembered, right?
Right. I think you might have remembered. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
hmm
So, with that, we have an amazing topic today, right? In our I Choose Us series, we are month number 5
hmm
and episode number 4
Yeah.
for I Choose Us, and it's been a great experience. And I think that what makes this episode special is that it's May is Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
hmm
So, in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month and celebrating it, today's episode is there is a special edition. Usually, we focus on a lot of aspects of relationships in itself, a lot of relational trauma. But today, we're going to focus on our own wellness. Of course, everything is interconnected. So, the things that we actually share today are intertwined with our own wellness, or intertwined with our relationships, right? Because we as individuals need to take care of ourselves in all the different ways in life so that we can show up in healthy ways in our relationship,
Yes.
right?
Agreed. hmm
So, with that, what's our topic today? Our topic is practicing holistic wellness. Okay. So, some of you may be familiar with the term holistic, and some of you may not be necessarily familiar. So, what we wanted to do was really just break down some of these terminologies. Okay. So, the first thing that we're really going to talk about is what is mental health, right? What does it mean when we say mental health? So, Deanna, do you want to give them your expertise on that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we talk about mental health. I think mental health and mental illness get conflated all of the time.
Hmm.
Mental health, I think of mental health a lot like physical health. It's never 100% perfect all the time. It's never without injury or without some sort of ache or some sort of something that doesn't feel good. But I think you can be someone who has overall pretty good, you're in good mental health, even though you're going to feel down sometimes or sad or have a number of bad things that come along. And I think part of what makes our mental health stay healthy is tending to it in the same way that we tend to our bodies to keep them healthy, whether it's eating good vegetables, what's good for us, moving our bodies, physical activity, how we spend like our time in terms of taking care of ourselves, even with massage can be something that can be helpful for our physical health depending upon your needs and that sort of thing. Mental health is very similar. We have to be tending to our mental health, taking care of ourselves. A way that looks for me, I talked about this last time, was needing some alone time. That's a facet of caring for my mental health that's important for me.
Hmm.
Another
Yeah.
facet of it is engaging in important relationships and tending to those, and also allowing space for me to process whatever's happening in my life. So these things are all part of our mental health and tending to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that it's very important to distinguish, as you mentioned, is the difference between mental illness and mental health, right?
Mhm.
So, as we talk about this at a very critical time, just worldwide, globally, right? We're
Mhm.
seeing an increase in people seeking mental health treatment, rightfully so, because a lot has happened, right? A lot of global crises in itself, a lot of global international traumas, right? So we are seeing an increase in people seeking mental health treatment. And another way, another term that's used in the field is behavioral health as well, right? So you have behavioral health, you have mental health, even psychiatric treatment. Like those are all the different terms that really dictate what we're really talking about. There's the medical piece of things and there's the mental piece of things.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course, they're all intertwined together, right?
Mhm.
So when we think about mental illness and we think about mental health, a lot of times, often people automatically like have a pushback, even if you say mental health, right? Whenever you say, hey, maybe going to therapy would be helpful for you, right? People's immediate reactions are, I don't have an issue. I don't need any therapy, right? Because they're automatically operating from a place of mental illness, right? Illness is what? The term illness is a disease,
Mhm.
right? When we use the terminology, and illness equals disease. So, yes, there's different layers of mental illnesses, and our mental health is encompasses all of the aspects that impact our mental psyche. That's what mental health is. And then mental illness is more along the lines of diagnosis and treatment, right? And the severity of mental health issues would determine the mental health illness. Yet we don't see it like that. There's such a huge stigma behind mental health, quote unquote, that people often don't seek treatment or therapy because they don't want to be labeled as mentally ill, which is a disservice because if your mind and your mental psyche needs support, how are you getting that support? What have been your experiences, Deanna, around this phenomena of mental health and
Mhm.
mental illness?
I think what I noticed with it is that like people think that we've equated feeling good with doing well and like being on top of things. If you're feeling good all the time, then obviously you're doing something well, you're doing the right thing, all of this kind of stuff. And we've taken the idea sometimes I think that if you feel bad, that if you feel sad or any number of things in some way, shape, or form, that you're doing poorly, that that's a poor sign of your mental health. But
Mhm.
what's curious about that to me is when someone catches a cold, I catch a cold like every fall. It's like this thing that happens every fall. I catch a cold. No one thinks, oh my gosh, all these horrible things that I'm not taking care of myself or any of these things. It's just like, well, that's life. Sometimes you feel poorly. And the same goes actually with our mental health. And I think there's such a stigma around feeling a bad feeling that the perception of the goal is to switch into feeling a good feeling. And I think
Mhm.
that's part of what's made seeking help so difficult, and also the understanding around mental health so difficult, is that mental health, again, to what we're talking about, means that sometimes that we're going to feel poorly, but that doesn't mean that you're not in good mental health. Feeling sad, what that means is that you're human. That's really ultimately, I think, part of the human experience, and there's no way around it. And so, yeah, the stigma around mental health and getting treatment is still so,
Mhm.
so great, and so such a barrier for people.
Yeah. And we can definitely talk about destigmatization of
Mhm.
mental health, right? Which again is a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Yet I do want to know that something I often share with our clients, families that I work with is there's something about therapy and something about being in the mental health profession where people actually think they can be the expert,
Mhm.
right? Like, I'm sure you hear this very often in sessions, especially when you're trying to engage a family member, right? They may say, "Oh, I don't need therapy. I talk to my friends."
Mhm.
Or in our day-to-day language, they're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm the therapist for my friends."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that comment in itself just minimizes our expertise as mental health professionals in so many ways, right? Like, your day-to-day speaking,
Mhm.
talking, and comforting someone is not therapy. Is it
Mm-mm.
an aspect of life that is humanly driven? Do we find comfort in our loved ones and in our relationships? Absolutely. Right. But I do believe that I think mental health field in itself is one of the only fields that people give you such a huge pushback. You know,
Mhm.
when
Yep.
you need a cardiologist, when you need a neurologist or
Mhm.
gynecologist, people aren't thinking twice about going to them, right? But when
Mhm.
you need a mental health therapist, a psychologist, people firmly believe that they can deal with this by
Yes.
themselves.
It's I know, isn't it so curious? It's like it's so curious, and I think what's important in this is that there's a lot of training that goes into being a licensed mental health therapist. We don't just get to do this. You don't just get to wake up and do it. All of the hours that go into not just the schooling, but the training that comes after schooling is a lot. There's a lot of understanding of the mind, of how to help someone else, because ultimately I think in order to do this job, and this is where people really struggle in interpersonal relationships, in order to do this job, I have to understand someone else's reality as they experience it. I have to
Mhm.
be able to go in and mentalize their experience in the world as they've lived it and understand it in order to really help them, because I'm helping you tap into your own mind is what I'm doing in order to find the answers within yourself. The only
Mhm.
person who knows exactly what it's like to be any of us is us. I'm the only person who knows exactly what it's like to be me. And so that's part of the beauty of this work, is really tapping
Mhm.
into that with someone else, and that can be healing. But yeah, there's a lot of training that goes into this. You don't just get to be a therapist because you woke up one day and decided that was the career path you wanted to do.
Yeah, that, and there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, right? Like, you are
Mhm.
looking at people's symptoms, you are
Mhm.
assessing for interventions, like,
Mhm.
you're looking at the data that you're receiving every single session and figuring out strategically, am I going to go this route or am I going to go this route,
Mhm.
right? And that in itself, it's a very analytical conceptual process, right?
Yes.
As a
Yes.
therapist, it's like you're determining the course of treatment, and
Mhm.
you have to be very strategic in, like, okay, this intervention is going to work,
Mhm.
right? Or you're hoping it will work, which is
Mhm.
why every therapist is different, which is why they say this mental health field is one that requires having a great fit,
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
right? I mean, other doctors, absolutely, right? If you don't like your primary care physician, you may give it them a try because they're meeting your needs, they're doing the lab work, you're getting an appointment, right?
Mhm.
You may not be that focused. You're like, as long as I'm getting what I need, it's fine. And even with specialized experts like cardiologists, neurologists, right? The wait list is so long that
Mhm.
people will tolerate certain behaviors from those
Mhm.
professionals because they're experts and they're good at what they do. Yet when it comes to a therapist, Deanna, I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm sure you have, but like,
Mhm.
we are so disposable sometimes so quickly. Um,
Mhm.
and moving on to the next person or just dropping out of therapy is a lot more common, unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah,
if
it's
it's
very
not a
common.
good fit.
Yeah, it has to be a good fit. And I think sometimes there's the unrealistic expectation that change happens overnight, and it
Mhm.
doesn't. By the time we're adults in therapy, we don't get to where we are overnight, so it doesn't
Mhm.
happen overnight. It takes a lot of work. And so I think that can happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think we went off on a tangent.
Oh, yes. There's
But
so much
it's
to talk
okay.
about.
You know why? Because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
That's definitely right. It is Mental Health Awareness Month.
It is, right? So it's important. So with that, I do have a technical issue going on here that I want to note, guys. It looks like something happened with my link, which I suspected. So I am not sure that the LinkedIn, you're able to access this live on LinkedIn. So I'm hoping people are logged in on the YouTube channel. It is going live on YouTube. So what we'll do is Deanna will go ahead and repost it so that people can watch it afterwards too.
Perfect.
Okay. So with that, to the topic of the day in itself, right? So we're talking about mental health. We're talking about mental illness. And then today we're going to specifically talk about holistic approaches, right? So what does holistic approaches mean? For me, it's as simple as looking at the person with the wholeness of their makeup, right? We're looking at all the sociocultural variables, right? All the things in this world that impact us as a person. And then we're also kind of holistic, to me, is also shifting away from like the pharmacological pieces, but also leaning more into natural causes, right? The natural beauty of how we can work on the things around us more internally and externally to help us achieve the highest level of wellness. So when we talk about holistic wellness, that's what my understanding is. Deanna, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, when I think of a holistic, like thinking of things holistically, I think of that we're not just like I think of like a plate full of food, like my mom used to like to have separate bowls for all of her food, like so it wouldn't touch. That's not how I roll. But anyway, that's how she would roll. But like I think sometimes what we want is that we want to put things in its own little container in its own spot and just focus on one thing right here and not think about any other aspects of things. But like thinking holistically, things are very interconnected. For example, there's a mind-body connection that's very, very strong. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which talks about how trauma is held in the body. So a facet of like thinking holistically about mental health is what's happening in your body in addition to what's happening in your mind and how you're feeling. Things are very, very interconnected. So we have to think about things from a very broad approach. One way that I like the best analogy I can think of thinking of more holistically or thinking about things from a multifaceted approach is actually if we think about like even medical treatment, if you think about like cancer treatments, sometimes cancer treatment's like a simple surgery and you're good. But other times it's like chemotherapy, radiation, physical therapy, immunotherapy, all these different things. And they all target something different, but all something that's connected at conquering this one disease. And so mental health, like if I think about mental health holistically, I mean, there's like our relationships, there's the physical component. Physical health ties into our mental health ties into physical health. Again, everything's really interconnected. And I think it's important that we're aware of that because it will help us when we're trying to achieve optimal physical and or mental health.
Yeah, you put it down so nicely. And while you were, doing an amazing job explaining and kind of unpacking the meaning of holistic approaches, I actually Googled it, obviously, right?
Yes.
ChatGPT. And this is what it says. And I think this is like one of the best definitions. And everything that you just said was incorporated in this definition. So it says here, a holistic approach is a way of thinking and acting that considers the whole person or system rather than just the individual parts, right? And then it says it is based on the idea that everything is interconnected and interdependent, meaning that to understand and approve something, one must look at it as a whole. This approach is often applied in various fields such as psychology, education, healthcare, emphasizing the balance between mind, body, and spirit.
I like that.
And you named each and every one of those parts, right? So if we were to break it, it's the wholeness, right? It's the mind, body, spirit, the soul, right? And it's interconnected and interdependent. That's what holistic approaches are. So what does that mean for our mental health, and what does that mean for us, right? In today's episode, we are going to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness that fall under holistic approach, a holistic approach. So we're going to talk about them one by one, and depending on how much time we have left, how much we cover, it may go into a second episode, but we'll give it our best try, right? And hopefully we'll be able to give you guys some great examples so that when you are actually watching this episode again, you're able to apply some of these things into your life, because it is very important, right? So with that, let's start with the definition of wellness, right? We talked about mental illness, mental health, and holistic approaches. What does wellness mean? So I'm going to give you a very, very simple definition, okay? It says here, wellness is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. And of course, I would expand that to other areas too, versus just physical, mental, and social well-being. So wellness is what? It's how you take care of yourself, right? Wellness is not just, hey, I don't have any diseases right now. I don't have diabetes. I don't have any cardiac issues. You know, I don't have anything else going on. I don't have any pain in my body, right? I think we define our wellness strictly on whether we have some form of disease or not, right? So, and I'll give you an example. This literally happened to me yesterday, okay, in a session. I asked a client of mine, and our goal in for that client is self-care, very poor self-care, okay, to a point where this person's schedule is so hectic that they have fell asleep on the wheel.
Wow.
Okay, because of sleep deprivation. And of course, the family is concerned too, right? So he's struggling with pouring into himself. And so I had asked him, I was like, okay, so when's the last time you had your physical? And he recently actually had his physical not too long ago, which is a plus, right? For someone to actually go out and get their physical yearly, that's also taking time from your day to day, right? To actually prioritize it. So that's a plus. That's part of your wellness, right? But in the moral of the story is, I asked him, well, how did the physical go? How was your lab work? What's going on, etc. He's like, oh, my lab work is great. Everything is within normal limits, right? So I'm like, oh, well, that's great, right? And immediately, what are we thinking? The absence of disease, right? Everything is normal. Your blood pressure, your thyroid, you know, your weight, your BMI, all of that good stuff, right? Yet in that discussion, it did not take into account his entire wellness. The fact that he's falling asleep at the wheel is concerning, even though his lab work is within normal limits. So I think that's a really good example of wellness, right? It's not about the absence of disease or absence of problems. It's about how you continue to pour into yourself so that you are healthy.
Yeah.
And that's in different layers, right? And those are the 8 dimensions of wellness. So Deanna, what would you want to add to that? I'm sure you have great examples of psychoeducation around wellness and kind of breaking it down for individuals.
Yeah, I mean, like, wellness is proactive, in my opinion. I think we don't think about wellness until we feel unwell. We don't think about, our mental health again until we feel unwell. And yet I think that there's a proactiveness and an insight that's got to come as a part of wellness. Wellness being, drinking plenty of water, eating enough protein, fruits and vegetables, those sorts of things, physical activity. Also, when it comes to mental health, part of the wellness aspect of mental health, I think, is if we want to, is building resilience, which means tapping into our to insight, being able to build a self-reflective capacity, which allows us to experience hard things, know that we aren't bad for feeling bad at any point. And also sometimes it means that we can anticipate that something's going to be hard and we can pre-prepare for it. Usually when we do that, we get through something a little better than feeling like we've crumbled in a moment or lashed out or done something, you know, as a result of feeling bad or being in a hard position or a hard situation, and then trying on the back end to make ourselves feel better for something that we feel, you know, for having having had a behavior or saying something that we feel shameful about. So the proactive piece, when thinking about wellness in that case. And yeah, we don't think about how we're unwell until we feel unwell. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think our health we take for granted.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
sure do,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's usually in the absence of something
Mm-hmm.
that we recognize the importance of it,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right? I
Absolutely.
mean, we're like even something as simple as, you know, our hearing, our
Mm-hmm.
eyesight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we take our speaking, right? Or
Yep.
all of our five senses. It's like we think it's
Mm-hmm.
so normal, right? Yet there are people out there who are deaf or who
Yep.
can't hear, need devices, right? That
Mm-hmm.
are blind. Yet
Mm-hmm.
we move into this world like nothing's ever going to happen to our
Yep.
five senses or to us, right? Like we're going to be able body
Mm-hmm.
forever. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, again, that in itself is a whole other privilege
Mm-hmm.
conversation around being able-bodied, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having all the things that you need to move in this world
Yep.
successfully. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let's start talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness, right? So
Yeah.
if we had viewers on LinkedIn, I would be actually asking
Uh-huh.
people what they think they are, but
Mm-hmm.
this entire screening situation today really messed up the live stream.
Mm-hmm.
So here's let's go with the first one. So we are going to, the way that we divided it, there's 8 different areas of dimension, and in those 8 areas we've divided them in subcategories. So the
Mm-hmm.
first subcategory that we are going to discuss today is individualized wellness. And what that really just means is that in those aspects are specifically focused on you as an individual, and they're more internal, and you have more I guess control on how you're navigating those
Mm-hmm.
versus communal wellness, which will most likely be our topic for the next episode. So we'll start with the first category of individualized wellness. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, Deanna, you go ahead and take the first one.
Yeah, the first one is physical wellness. I love this. I think this is like such a great topic, and it comes up all the time in the clinical work that I do. Because again, our physical wellness taps into our mental health big time, whether there's some sort of chronic illness, some sort of chronic pain. Those things can have such a devastating impact on someone's mental health. But also, whether we're taking care of ourselves by our own perception or whether we're not taking care of ourselves impacts someone's mental health a lot. I hear this a lot where people, they have a goal for themselves to eat better or to start exercising or that sort of thing. And if they're not doing it, it can cause a lot of shame and a lot of like negative self-talk and things along that line. So our physical health is important. And I think people know that. I think people know that eating vegetables, drinking water, exercising are important things to do. And they do make us feel better when we do those things. And so I think it's such an important thing to think about. And it's something that I talk about a lot in the therapy space with people. Another facet of it that I think is important is when it comes to emotions and emotional like well-being, our physical health is tied to that greatly. One of
Mhm.
my favorite things to work with in this therapy space is anger, because people experience anger. We get angry. We're humans. It happens. And a lot of times as kids, we're punished for anger. So some of the messages that we internalize from that is that we shouldn't be angry. But
Mhm.
what we don't know how to do is just how to have healthy coping skills and healthy ways of working through anger. And when I work with people who struggle with a lot of anger, the thing that I recommend almost all the time is boxing, is bag boxing, because there's something actually really cathartic about getting to hit something, because you can't hit people. I mean, people do it, but don't hit people. Let's not do that. But hitting something and getting anger out is really powerful and transformational for people. And there's a physical component to that. Like anger comes out that way. Like anger comes out of our body, it flies out. There's a calming effect that comes with getting to hit something. And you just see the relief that people have. And so our physical bodies again are holding what's happening on the mental health side of things. And so the physical health component is huge. And I think we could have an hour-long discussion about physical health and how that ties to mental health, just that alone, because it's so fascinating. Yeah. So I'll pause there for now before I get too monologue-y.
Yeah, I mean, you broke it down so nicely, and and with clarity.
Mhm.
And as I was listening to you, I was thinking about how most people, they end up seeking therapy after once they start having physical symptoms that are
Mhm.
debilitating,
Mhm.
right? So think about how people come into therapy, right? And there are times where they have done a workup on other areas,
Mhm.
and their other doctors can't
Mhm.
identify anything
Mhm.
in those areas.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, by the way, you should go see a behavioral health or mental health expert, because it could be
Yes.
anxiety, it could be
Mhm.
depression, it could be trauma, right?
Mhm.
And then because they've ruled those things out, right? And then it's like, oh, okay, well, that feeling in your stomach isn't a stomach issue, it's a mental issue,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That sleeping a lot isn't a thyroid issue, it's a depression issue,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think we put our mental health on the back burner in so many ways, right? And at times people want a quick fix too,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
right? You
We
want
all
a
do.
quick
Mhm.
fix. And I don't think there's any time where I've been like, hey, yeah, come in. All you need is
Mhm.
one session, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
when we do consultations, that's a different story, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So as you're talking about the physical aspect of things, that's the thing that came to my mind, right? Like
Mhm.
people come to us when they're like almost at their worst and having physical symptoms,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And we do the mental work and healing our mind, body, and soul, right? Which helps you cherish your body.
Mhm.
And that in itself helps you get rid of the physical symptoms,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, what I would add to the physical wellness piece is what we call somatic symptoms too,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Are you having stomach pains? Is your back hurting? I mean, I get a regular massage every month, okay? And
I
Massage
love this.
Envy,
I love
okay?
this.
So
Uh-huh.
so I can actually feel the pain in my body, especially in the
Mhm.
shoulder area and the knots and everything. That's
Mhm.
related to me sitting here every day,
Mhm.
right? So physical activity, the stretching is so
Mhm.
important for pain,
Mhm. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Drinking enough fluids, staying hydrated.
Mhm.
I mean, the list can go on and on and
It
on,
can
right?
go
On
so on. Yes. Yes.
how we need to take care of ourselves physically. Yet, I think the main areas around physical wellness have to do with physical activity, exercise, meditation,
Mhm.
your sleeping, your nutrition, right? And then also engaging in self promoting behaviors that bring you joy and
Mhm.
happiness. So like
Yeah.
hobbies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's just one bit of our physical wellness. Of course,
Yeah,
you
one
know,
small facet of it.
one small facet and everyone's different, right? Everyone's different.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now we're moving on to intellectual. Okay. So intellectual in its simplest way form is our brain, right? Our intellect, how we think, how our mind works, right?
Mhm.
Are we engaging in creative activities to challenge our mind, right?
Mhm.
So for example, I'm sure we see a lot of elderly people, right,
Mhm.
doing crossword puzzles,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right, to keep
Mhm.
their mind working. So for
Yes.
me, intellectual is very much connected to your neurology,
Mhm.
your brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's about taking information in that is healthy for your brain
Mhm.
and getting rid of information that's not healthy.
Mhm.
So when we talk about the mental aspect of things,
Mhm.
we all know we're exposed to both healthy and unhealthy
Mhm.
situations, events in life, right? So if you grew up with two parents or a parent that was very loving and caring and poured into you and nurturing, right? Of course, intellectually, that's going to impact you differently than a
Mhm.
parent who's absent or
Yes.
a parent that passes away when you're
Mhm.
3, 4, 6 years old, right?
Mhm.
Or a parent that leaves,
Mhm.
right? So intellectual for me is it's about the brain, it's about how you think, it's about your perspectives, it's about how fast your brain is moving as well, right?
Mhm.
So there's so many different ways to focus on your intellectual wellness, and some
Mhm.
of them are your work,
Mhm.
right? Like you guys already know me and Deanna, we love what we do, so it keeps us intellectually stimulated.
100% it does. Yes.
Right? So
Mhm.
imagine if we stop using our brain,
Mhm.
right? It's
Mhm.
it's 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 going to become stagnant. It's you're just not going to be able to
Mhm.
um focus on you're not your brain's not going to be healthy in many ways. I mean,
Mhm.
we have to keep it engaged over time, which is where memory
Mhm.
issues come in, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That fogginess as you age, right? So you
Yep.
have to keep nourishing your mind as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Deanna, what would you add to that?
I love that. I think that's so well said. Like I think we could conflate intellectual wellness with like being smart or not smart or like having a high IQ or whatever. And that's not it at all. It's about like what stimulates your mind. This stimulates my mind. I love doing this with you. I think it's so fun. And it's so good for my intellectual wellness because it stimulates my mind. It challenges me to think. I like having conversations like this. It's good for me, and that is what I need as part of my overall sense of wellness.
Mhm.
Another thing that I do for from the intellectual side and just stimulating my mind actually is I'll move a little bit. I do hand embroidery. I don't know if you can see it. It's like right there behind me over my
Yeah.
shoulder. I love it. It's like an old lady habit. Or an old lady activity is what I kind of joke about, because I like to think I'm still young. I'm 39. And but I love
You're
to
young.
thank you. I love to embroider. I think it's so fun. It's again, it stimulates my mind in a way that's helpful. I also do Wordle every day. I don't know, are other people Wordling still? That it was such a popular app at one time. I do the New York Times Wordle every day, and it stimulates my mind. And those things are important for me. And absolutely, we have to think about how we use our minds, and it can look different for everyone. What
Yeah.
stimulates one person's mind isn't that way for someone else. Someone who loves car mechanics, that's not my lane. It's not even my highway. But if it stimulates your mind and it helps you, that's important in your holistic sense, like thinking of your holistic health and
Mhm.
mental well being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the examples you gave, and it reminds me of what I'm going to show you.
Uh huh.
Okay, you ready? So I have this new thing going
Already.
on where I have been coloring. a
Yes.
lot.
I love this.
Okay, so I bought this book,
Yeah. How
Circle
pretty
of
is that
Life.
cover?
I
Yes.
know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So look at this pages, right?
Uh-huh.
So I may have gotten this from Five Below, and usually I pick up these creative things because I
Mhm.
love art. But you
Mhm.
know, at Umid Center, we also have an art therapy program, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I see some amazing
Mhm.
art um thingy majingies that I think would be awesome to have, I usually get them. So this actually was supposed to be for the art room. So when
Uh-huh.
people come in, they can just color. But guess what, Deanna?
Tell me.
It's sitting on my table at home and
I
I've
love
been
it.
using it for myself.
Good for you. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
So you want to talk about intellectual stimulation? This is what I've been doing.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Are you using markers?
You know what? I've actually been using markers and crayons. I mix them up.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so
So
fun.
this, you can just imagine, this makes my brain like so
Mhm.
excited because I
Yep.
enjoy it. And look at the
Oh,
creativity.
I love that so much. Let's go on vacation to the beach and you color and I'll embroider. I love
Yeah.
this. Uh-huh. That's
So as you
so
were
pretty.
talking, I was like, I've been doing things right here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is stimulating to me. It keeps my
Mhm.
brain focused, but then it also art also calms you down. So there's
Yeah.
that other piece of our wellness, right?
Mhm.
Intellectually, what are we taking in that calms our brain?
Yes.
Because
Mhm.
we have all this trauma in our life, and trauma impacts our brain in a way where it's very hyperactive.
Mhm. Yep.
It's
Yep.
going like this, right?
Mhm.
So, art activities, things like this actually
Mhm.
calm you down, and intellectually, it really help you get regrounded and focused as
Mhm.
well.
Yes. Yes, absolutely true. Yeah. So important. Mhm.
Yeah. So, I am very excited. I may start another page today.
Well, I think you should. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
plan on having a wall of Dr. Q's
Mhm.
art in my office.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that,
Mhm.
we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Human emotion expert, this is for
Mhm.
you. So the
Mhm.
next area of wellness, dimension of wellness,
Mhm.
is emotional. And of course, Deanna's going to
Ah.
take the lead on that one.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Okay, two things about emotions. One, I say this all the time. You'll hear me say it again. I said it earlier. You cannot go through life without feeling bad feelings. It is not possible. It's not going to happen. So we have to accept that, I think, as reality in order to even begin to process bad feeling. So that is one important thing. And also the second thing is I think sometimes people wish they could go through life without feeling bad. And I get it because it doesn't feel good. If you were going to do that, it would also mean that you would go through life without feeling good things. And can you imagine a life without feeling? Feelings are what add richness and depth to life. And I really believe that very strongly. Our capacity to feel is a gift. It is truly a gift. And the fact that we can feel good correlates directly to the fact that we also feel bad sometimes. The things that make us feel really good can also make us feel really bad, relationships, any other number of things. But
Mhm.
feelings are important and they are a gift. And can you imagine like a life where I mean, have you ever been so excited that you could have like jumped out of your skin? That is a feeling. That is a feeling that adds richness and depth. On the other side of the spectrum, grief actually comes from a space of richness and depth as well. It is hard, it is painful,
Mhm.
and it is not fun, but it comes from the same space of richness and depth. And so we have to be able to allow ourselves space to feel.
Mhm.
And it is a gift, and it's important to be able to do that. And we do this all the time without thinking about it when things feel really good. Like
Mhm.
even this past weekend, so I'm up at the cabin. I'm talking to Cheryl. She's like the 80, I can't remember if she's 80 or 81-year-old stepmom of my boyfriend. She's just so charming. And I was like, Cheryl, I love coming up here. I think it's so fun. And she's like, but we're so boring and there's nothing to do. It's a town of 40 people. And I was like, I love that it's a town of 40 people. It's so fun to me because it feels so peaceful to me. It feels still, it feels quiet, and it allows me to tap into a personal space of rest that's really important for me and that I need. And that's very important. I'm getting ready to go to my cousin's wedding in a few weeks. I'm very excited about it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be joyful. It's going to be wonderful. Not quite a year ago, last June, I attended the funeral of an 11-year-old who died of cancer. My own brother died of cancer when I was a kid. That was not an easy space to walk into. I didn't go into it with the expectation that it would be easy. I went into it with the expectation that it was going to be hard and that it was not going to feel good. And I allowed myself the space to have that hard feeling because it was also the appropriate response. So sometimes feelings happen in life, and they're an important part of life. And our emotional and our physical and our mental well-being ties very much to allowing feeling to exist. It's when we try to shove those really poor feelings down. In particular, Sigmund Freud actually has a quote. I know people think he's crazy and he's got some crazy stuff, but he has a quote that says, unexpressed feelings are buried alive and they'll come forth later in usually unsavory ways. I don't remember, that's not the exact verbatim quote, but that's the gist of it. And it's true. Those bad feelings that we try to get rid of, they will come forth later, and they will come out sideways in ways that make us usually feel really bad. We're yelling at our partner or the Starbucks barista when we're really upset about something else, but we can't contain the bad feeling anymore. And so allowing space to process emotion is so important when it comes to our physical health, our mental health, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that in itself, that statement in itself, as the field expanded and grew, we came up with the understanding that anger is a secondary emotion, right? Because your primary emotions are being unexpressed, right? So it's that grief, it's that disappointment, is that guilt, is that sadness, or even depression can come off as anger. Why? Because anger is easier some way, somehow to express. Everybody gets angry, and everybody's okay saying I'm angry and acting in angry ways, right? Yet it's harder to communicate, hey, I'm disappointed in myself. I feel shame.
Yeah.
I'm hurt. Because that requires what? Vulnerability.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's much harder for me to say I'm sad to you, to say, hey, Miss, I'm sad about this thing, than it is, to say other things. It's much harder to do that. It can feel much harder.
Yeah. I mean, even before that, right? It's about recognizing how you're feeling, right? Part of the emotional wellness is about what? Gaining emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Once you gain emotional intelligence, there's different phases of emotional intelligence, right? But the first mere part is having the vocabulary to name the different emotions.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's even with anger, there's so many different words, right? There's anger, there's frustration, there's annoyance, there's rage, right? Even with sadness, sad, depressed, right? So we have to have the vocabulary, which requires psychoeducation, and then you can actually name the specific emotions. So as part of your own emotional wellness, it's really important to recognize, have an understanding of the variations of emotions, and then learning how to express those correctly, which requires self-awareness. We talked about self-awareness.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Self-awareness is a huge part of it. We have to be able to self-reflect. If we get to know our feelings, if we get to know someone else's feelings, we get to know needs. Something that can accompany feeling is need. Sometimes I need space, or I need to vent, or I need to do whatever in accordance with however I'm feeling. And so, yeah, we have to be able to do that. And also, we can't allow a feeling in someone else that we don't allow in ourselves. I can't sit in the therapy space with someone who's feeling grief if I can't allow that feeling to also exist in myself. And allowing others to feel in our presence, and others allowing us to feel in their presence, is so important for relationships. It's healing, and it's so bonding and unifying in relationships when we allow someone to feel to feel grief, or we allow someone to feel sadness. Yeah.
You know, that brings me back to what I've been talking about for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and I'll give you an example of what you just shared, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember over my career, right? I would obviously work with individuals and families who've lost a loved one via death that
Mm-hmm.
have passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there in sessions, not knowing exactly how to respond or questioning my own competence around it or just showing up in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
right? You learn about grief and then you experience grief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Two different things.
Totally.
It wasn't until I lost my parents where I became comfortable to know that I can actually transform other people's grief
Mm-hmm.
the way that I've experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Me being able to connect with the person in front of me came so naturally around loss after I lost my parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if like I just had to be myself.
Yeah.
Why? Because now I've experienced grief. And I'm not in sharing that. I don't want to take away from the fact that like, hey, you gotta have heart disease to be a good cardiologist, right? Or you have to have sexual trauma to be able to work with survivors of sexual trauma. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Yet, I think there's pieces of us that show up in certain ways, and just certain lived experiences impact how you show up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And we don't have to have the same experience as someone to be able to sit in their experience and understand their reality as they've lived it at all. But experiencing something can connect you to a different facet of it, like grief, for example. Experiencing grief definitely. Yeah. And it's everywhere. And grief, we could talk about grief for days. I mean, it's not even just death and dying. There's so many ways that grief manifests itself. It's such an interesting topic. It's one of, it's an area of clinical interest of mine. So yeah, we could go on and on and on. Yeah.
Right. And I think the other piece to note here is that because we're in the human healing profession, like as you look back and you grow as a professional, right? It's you start also seeing that like, hey, I've experienced grief in other ways, right? So that example goes to parenting, right? So at this point in my life, if a parent comes to me and says, do you have any kids? You're over here trying to teach about co-parenting. My old self, I would be like, no, okay, I'm gonna back up. My current self, not even as a mother yet, I'm like, yeah, I actually don't have any kids, but I'm confident that I can help you with the parenting.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's another example being on the other side. I haven't had that experience yet of being a mother, but I've had experiences of parenting. I know as an expert what it looks like, right? And I can connect with the parents on a different level as well.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we should move on to the last one.
Yes.
We're doing pretty good on time, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So our last dimension, at least for the first part, for individualized wellness is spirituality. Okay. So in that, of course, I have tons and tons of examples in my personal life, but professional life as well, how important our spirituality is. And if we actually look at some of the literature, spirituality, the dimension of spirituality is also noted as existential, meaning your existence, right? I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Existential, is that how you say it?
Existential?
Yes, okay. That right. You see the confidence? Back then I would be so ashamed. Now I'm just like, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right? So just so you guys know, some people may call it that in itself. And then I also think it's important to note here that people use the word spiritual and religious interchangeably as well. Yet it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're not going to go in all the ways that it is different, but I do want to highlight, these 8 dimensions. There's a reason why they named it spiritual versus religious wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those reasons is spiritual encompasses everyone, whereas religious, you need to be tied into within certain religion to complete
Mm-hmm.
your wellness,
Yes.
to be able to pour in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yes, there's a lot of different religions in the world. There's a lot of people that practice a lot of different things. There's even variations in religiosity as
Yeah.
well within a religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet, spirituality is what kind of ties religion and your existence together.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality is your relationship with something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be a higher power, or it could be something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's to me, it's the unknown.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? It's beyond us. There's something else that exists beyond us, right? So it's believing in the unseen as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So of course there are individuals and families out there that may identify as atheists, which is okay. There's a lot of different ways that people move. Even Scientology is a form of religion in itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think when it comes down in a nutshell, what spiritual wellness really means is you being able to connect with something bigger than yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about, let's see, what will we say exactly what they said here? It's values towards meaning and purpose of life,
Mm-hmm.
outside or within the context of religious tradition. So it can be or it cannot be,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about respecting one's progression and significance. So the value of life, the value of humanity. It's about developing trust, integrity, accountability, and an ethical approach to life. And then it's also about understanding personal and social identities.
Mm-hmm.
That's how spiritual wellness is defined.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean in our day-to-day life? To me, it's about accepting everyone for who they are, accepting everyone as their authentic self, allowing yourself and others to be your authentic self as well. Right? Believing that life has a purpose, there's a reason why we're here, right? And in that, we are going to experience trials and tribulations along with happiness and joy.
Yeah.
Right? So that is my understanding of spirituality. Deanna, what are you thinking?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with those things. I think that's so important. And yeah, I think what I really love is embracing people's individuality. We aren't all the same person. We don't all experience life the same way. If we did, there would be like one self-help book and you and I wouldn't have jobs. Like, because there's this individual way that we experience life in the world. And so I think that's part of that connection. What I think is spirituality too, like nature is a big component of that for me. I think that's very important, is that connectedness to nature in addition to others and to God and all of those facets of it. So yeah, the time went by so fast today. I feel like we keep talking about these things.
Well, I'm open to doing another one if you want, but as we end, this is not a coincidence that this is called Circle of Life.
Oh yeah.
You literally we just talked about spirituality, right? And you talked about nature.
Yeah.
Right? So Circle of Life, guys. So spirituality includes nature, but it also includes everything else that's created in this world.
Yeah.
And aside from us humans.
Right.
Right? And that deeper connection with these other aspects of life as well.
Yeah.
And with that note, I will also say The Lion King is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's so good.
which is
good.
why I was probably drawn to this coloring book,
Mhm.
The Circle of Life.
Yes, I love that.
Right?
So good.
So in that, guys, our time is up. I will go ahead and repost this so everybody has access to it.
Mhm.
You know, Deanna, me and you actually been talking to ourselves today.
I
But
know.
it's
It's
okay.
okay. We can have a conversation about anything.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like we just killed it. And
Yeah.
the good news is it's recorded, so a lot of people are gonna have access to this. So we will resume. Actually, we may even let's consider doing the second part this month if we can, because then we can go back to our regular I Choose Us series.
Sure.
And then in our next episode, we are going to cover communal wellness, which will be 4 other areas.
All right.
So with that, thank you so much, Deanna, for being
Yeah.
here and taking on this project with me. It's going amazing.
I love
And
it.
I will see everyone. We will see you guys next month, if not another round this month.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.